You could probably tell with my makeshift office right here. I work from home. I'd like to share to you some of the pros and cons of getting a job that lets you work from home. Let's fix this camera. I started working from home since 2013. The job that I have wasn't originally a job where you could work from home. Yeah, let me give you a brief context on how I got this job and how it turned out to be a work-at-home job. Originally, I worked for a company that made mobile apps back in 2011. Back then, the iPhone was still relatively new. The iPhone was out for 3 years. There were many mobile players in the market, so Android wasn't that big yet. Windows Mobile was still alive, and so was Symbian and BlackBerry. And the company which I worked for specialized on a platform that would let you code once and then build apps for all those different kinds of phones. At the time, it was pretty revolutionary to be able to build apps for all devices without needing to program for each and every one of them. Eventually, the iPhone started growing, Android started growing, and everyone else started receding into the distance. Windows Mobile just died. BlackBerry and Nokia sold its soul to Microsoft, and Symbian died. So eventually it was just iOS and Android, and the company I was working for got sold to another company here. When they sold the company, my boss from the mobile app company gave me an offer to stay with him. He's based in Australia. I've been working for him ever since. At the start, I used to still work in the same office along with my old workmates in that old company. But then there were a couple of bad hits to that company, and they were forced to lay off a huge chunk of the workforce, and that wasn't really nice. And I got evicted from the office because, one, I don't work for them anymore, and two, I'm just dead weight there. When I got evicted there, I started working from home. And 6 years later, I am still working from home. So, a couple of pros and cons about working from home. I think the biggest pro is that you have a better handle over your time. There's a better work-life balance. I think I am very lucky to be able to be there as my children grow up. When I started working from home, my son was just born. He was only a few months old. So I've always been there for him. I get to take him to school every day, bring him home. We get to spend a lot of time with each other. And the same thing goes with my daughter. Not a lot of parents these days get to do that. Have a job while still be able to spend time with their children. I think that's the biggest pro. The second one, in the Philippines, traffic is really awful. When I used to work in Makati, which is somewhere there in that, just beyond those line of buildings, I took the train. I used to take the train going to work. I never brought my car there because driving to Makati during the weekday is not a good idea. One, it's really crowded, and sometimes the trains break down. Sometimes the trains aren't in full working order, so sometimes they don't even have air conditioning. Needless to say, the commutes suck big time. You'd spend at least an hour getting to work if you ride the train, which is the fastest way to get there. And then going home, it's probably an hour and a half to 2 hours just to get home. So by the time you get home, you're doubly tired. Another pro is that I can basically work anywhere. This space right here, I call it my office. It's not really my office. Back when me and my wife were newly married, we used to live here. But when my son was born, we couldn't fit here anymore. It's a small studio unit. We moved out of here. Sometimes it's my wife's brother or her sisters that live here. But right now, no one's living here, so I use this as my office. It's a great midway point between my house and school. Plus, it helps me separate work from home, which I would touch on to shortly. One more pro about working from home is that if you have enough time, you can actually take side projects and do other work. Of course, this really depends on if you can stay away from conflicts of interests. That means don't work for the competitor of your current company or on a similar field or industry that might cause some conflict of interests. Or don't take any side projects if your contract expressly forbids you on taking side projects, if there's an exclusivity clause to your contract. In my case, I was able to take a few side jobs when the workload in my company wasn't so heavy. But I was able to work for my mom. I was able to provide her with some marketing advice, and I worked on the social networks of her bed and breakfast, as well as her advertising there. I was also able to work for a friend's company. I worked there as a marketing consultant. I worked there for a few months until they got someone to work full-time for them. But even when I was working those side projects, I made sure that they did not get in the way of my main job. One of the biggest cons about working from home is that, as I mentioned before, you start to lose separation between work and home. Your home is basically your workplace. So imagine if you live in your office. You never go home, you just stay in your office. And it gets harder it just gives you a feeling that there's nothing else happening. It's gives you a bad case of cabin fever. So about a year and a half into working from home, I started finding ways not to work from home. So sometimes I'd work on my mother's house, or sometimes I'd work here when there's no one living here, or sometimes I work in the coffee shop. Any way that I could make work separate from home is a good thing, because before that I'd wake up, get out of bed, the table's right next to the bed, and I just sit there and start working, and it gets old really fast. Another con is communications. Back when I was working in a real office environment, I prefer to just walk up to the person at the top. But obviously, now that I'm working from home, you need to go through a bunch of communication software. Most commonly Skype. We also use Slack, and of course email. But none of these communication methods are fast. There's a delay. By delay, I mean you have to wait for the person at the other end to answer. So there's a delay there, and sometimes it does slow down work. The third con, I think, is distractions. It's very easy to get distracted when you're working from home. I think I'm pretty suited to working from home because I have this ability of blocking out all external distractions. I don't get distracted that easily. If like me, sometimes the kids are home and I'm working there with them. There might be a lot of distractions. There might be a lot of noise, like that incessant digging. You just have to cope with that. I don't know, wear earphones, stay in a room away from everyone else. But understandably, you can't do that all the time, and it's just something that you have to cope with, something that you don't normally cope with on a normal office. A few misconceptions about working from home. Yes, sometimes working from home doesn't pay as well as a normal job, but sometimes you'll luck out and find a job where you can support a family of 4, in my case, and live comfortable lives while working from home. Another misconception is that you have more time, that you're less busy when working from home. If you work a real job, it doesn't matter where you work, you're still gonna put in the hours. right now. On paper, I should only be working 9 hours a day. I end up working 12 hours per day on the weekdays, and about 3 to 4 hours total during the weekends, so depending on how things go. But I'm not complaining. I like my job. I enjoy the work I do immensely, and I love my company. I think this was the best opportunity for me to be able to spend time with my family and still work from home. Oh, another pro for working from home is since you're working remotely, it doesn't matter where you're working. So I could book vacations with my family. We could go to other countries, and I could still work. It's kind of funny that I'm gonna say I book a vacation and then I just work when I'm there. But yeah, so I don't need to file leaves. I could have the kids and my wife enjoy their time, and I could still do some work while I'm there. Like for example, last year we went to the USA, so it's a totally different time zone. But I was able to stay there for a month because I didn't have to file my leave. I worked late in the afternoon in the United States all the way until 2 a.m., which is fine. That's the normal time I sleep anyway. And then I go out in the morning, do my usual vacation stuff, then get back by the afternoon and work again. So I hope I gave you a better insight about what it's like to work from home. If you have questions about it, just comment below. If you like stuff that you see in my videos, please click the like button and subscribe. It means a lot to me. Yeah, so see ya. Just came out of the car. Fog. It's pretty hot. Hey, it's a Christmas tree. Almost Christmas.